stink when you look at it.
So I call this meeting of the West Dakota Water Development District now open. And first item on the agenda is the Pledge of the Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the roll call of members.
Okay, Koth.
Here.
O'Shea. Driscoll.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Mullally.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Care.
Next item is the approval of the agenda. The board cannot take official action on any item that is not on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I've got a question. I kind of expected we might get some sort of an update on our inquiry to the Attorney General's office, and we wouldn't need to add that to the agenda.
I was gonna do that during chair comment.
So,
But I'll put that in there just to make sure that I don't forget, just in case the meeting goes long.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by,
Discussion.
Yeah.
I'd like to move item 10 to before item 8 so that we can, I notice that we might rescind that 125,000. So I would, if we're going to do that, I think it would make sense to do that before we talk about the budget.
okay, does the motion makers approve of the friendly amendment to the agenda?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, so we're gonna move item 10 to item 8.
And a couple minor things on item 11, I'd like to have it say first vote.
Okay,
And I noticed there's no director on that. Don't we normally have a director on all the agenda items?
I believe that's Young, if you look back in the, let's see, yeah, if you go to page 12, but it's not on the,
Okay.
it's not on the agenda.
Yeah,
There is-
we should put it on, the agenda's supposed to be a standalone document, so that would be my other desire, is to put Young on that.
okay.
That's all, Mr. Chair.
And the motion makers
That's
approve.
fine with me.
Sure. Okay. Discussion on the item? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor of approving the agenda, state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same side. Okay, the agenda is approved. Item number 4 is the conflict of interest. If any members might have a conflict of interest on any of the items on the agenda, this is the time to state that.
To the board, while not necessarily a conflict of interest, I want full transparency in that I've been a lifelong friend of Chris Stover, longtime friend of Hans and Lori Brown, as well as Eric Zimmer. However, according to our conflict of interest policy, no conflict is there. I just wanted you all to know that.
Okay.
And I'd also like to note that I know Chris Stover from my employer. He's a volunteer there as well.
Okay. Item number 5, approval of the minutes from the May 12th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Driscoll. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by McGregor. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from the May 12th meeting, state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Give Larry a second to type that in,
Say
because
aye.
then we move into the treasurer's report.
Okay, treasurer's report starts on page 5 in the packet. And the first table in here is the current financial position as of July 6. And at that time, a total in the bank accounts of $316,390.90. Raymond James account, $825,457.70 for a total of $1,141,848.60. The second sheet on page 6 is a year-to-date from January 1 to July 6th, and that is the far right column. In the center column is the interim between the last meeting, so the last preparation of this meeting, so May 5th to July 6th. And you'll see that there shows a revenue coming in, and that is the first half of the tax levy dropped, and that was $124,429.13. And so the other column on the far right shows the total, what this program calls revenue, $176,837.81. The expenditures then lists our current projects and the ones that received any expenses during the last 2 months, which was simply just bar engineering for work on the Deerfield-Pactola system. So you see and I created a new, we approved last meeting, you approved the additional $25,000 to bar. So I created a new account for 2026, the 05, the bar supplemental, and they submitted their bill, $24,805 for that, and then a couple of normal monthly invoices for their continuing work. So that's what those expenses are. Non-project expenses, the office expenses, the things that are listed there. So total expenditures for the last couple of months, $42,690.39. And you see the interest income, that's from the Raymond James account there. So that's those sheets. On page number was covered. Page 7 is the itemized listing of current projects, which are shaded. And so you can see the project number, the original grant amount, what disbursements are to this date, and then the balance remaining. And so at the very bottom of the balance remaining column, $335,350.21 of obligated funds is what that would be. And then the following figure on page 8 is the project timeline. In blue are active, red are closed.
For our budget discussions.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. If there's any questions, I can.
Any questions for our administrator? I'm looking for a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So move.
Okay, motion made by McGregor to
I'll
approve.
second.
Seconded by Klein. Discussion on the motion. Okay, hearing no request for discussion. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we move on to item number 7. Executive committee approval of transfer of $125,000 from the Black Hills Community Bank Savings Account to the Raymond James savings account, and that seems to be marked as you, Larry, so I'll let you.
Yeah, and so this is just to put that, some additional money over in the Raymond James that pays a higher interest until it's needed on a project. And so that was approved last week at the executive committee, and the transfer took place, I believe, on Thursday of last week. So on next month, the reports will show that increase at Raymond James, and the account that is listed on page 5 of the Black Hills Community Bank Savings Pinto Levy Money Market will be $125,000 less than what it shows currently. So there's like $42,000 currently in the levy account. That receives an average of between $8,000 and $10,000 a month in levy payments as well. So 2 big payments every year, and then maybe around $8,000 to $10,000 a month in monthly payments. So there'll be sufficient money in that account to fund, the operations of the office.
Any questions for our admin on that item? Okay. Not hearing any questions or comments, then it will move to the new item 8, informational update. Frank Henderson, President of Green Valley Sanitation District, on member poll results of the sewer project support. I believe that is an possible informational with a possible vote, and that is Director Mullally. Do you want to introduce the item?
Sure, this is the president of Green Valley Sanitary, Frank Henderson. He's also an engineer. And I've been talking to him about the future of their pressurized, it was a gravity feed design, now it's a pressurized design. So I believe there was a poll he took of the members of the sanitary district, and he's going to discuss that. So,
May I interrupt, Jed? Just, again, full disclosure, Frank is the husband of my cousin, so I just.
I'm sorry, what's that?
My cousin's husband, you poor devil, I'm sorry.
Oh, Pam's husband? Okay. I'm lucky. That's how I.
Okay.
Frank,
For all of you who don't know, it's a cool story. Real quick, like, we dated as teenagers. She broke up with me 47 years later. She's my mom's nurse, and we started talking again and got married, so now I live in the valley. All right, short story.
we're all connected.
Yeah, so love has a chance even after all those years. Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate your time. As introduced, my name is Frank Henderson. I am the president of Green Valley Sanitation District. I took over the job in would be either December or January, either December 25 or January of 26. I'm not quite sure. I remember which of those dates it was. We currently have 3 board members, so we're a little limited in that. We actually had to delay our normal meeting, scheduled meeting, which is last Wednesday, to be this Wednesday, so that we could make sure we had all three of our board members there. Directly to the point regarding the sewer system. So we put together a document which provided a summary of the cost. Again, here we go, full disclosure. The original cost that was proposed was somewhere in the range of $10 million. Last September, the cost had escalated by the engineering company's estimate to $20 million, or some just round numbers. All right. We've done so. We therefore put together a survey, mailed it out to all the addresses within. We actually coordinated with Rusty to make sure that we weren't overlapping boundaries with Rapid Valley. Sent out a survey to all of the addresses. Our June meeting, I would say, was robust. We slide the table back, and that end of the room was full. I mean, completely full. We gave the opportunity for survey responses by either hand delivery, hard copies, which a lot of them brought to the meeting. There was an online poll using Survey Monkey, I think. I'm not technical. Saban took care of that, using, I think, called Survey Monkey. And then, what was the other, oh, they could mail it in if they wish or whatever. Most of the responses were either the hard copy or through the Survey Monkey. I just got an update from Savan as I came over here. We got approximately 42% response out of the 200 and some members, approximately 42%. I was hoping for 50. We came close to that. There's a little bit of difficulty in all of this because some of the people are renters, some of the properties are vacant, some of the properties have been abandoned, there's just nobody there at all. So that part was a little bit challenging. Out of the 42% that respond, overwhelmingly no. I think we got somewhere, exact numbers I don't recall quite correctly, but somewhere around, so 42%, somewhere around 130 or so responses. Of those, I think 4 were in favor. All the rest were opposed, or we offered an opportunity for undecided. There were some of them that were undecided. It's ironic that one of the, and I'm not going to use names, that one of the previous board members who was pushing for the sewer system actually voted no as well too. The cost is doubled. It's very expensive for the original intent is a low interest loan at a low cost to our property owners. That's become a high cost. Our meeting this month is tomorrow night. On our agenda, we've added an item for our board to vote whether to proceed with the sewer system or not. I'm not going to speak for the other 2 board members. I will not speak for them. I will tell you my opinion. My vote's going to be no. Like I mentioned, I'm a registered professional engineer. I'm not comfortable with this system. I'm not 100% sure that it's needed. I don't think there's been the documentation that it's needed. I have not tried to sway anybody in this. I have been very diligent sitting in the meetings, making sure that we provided factual information, trying to keep the emotions out of it, both from the crowd and from myself as well, to a crowd. I shouldn't say that word. I should use constituents, from our constituents and our property owners, and from my own emotions. My vote's going to be no tomorrow night. I won't speak for the other 2 members, but I will give you my observation and opinion is that the vote will be no tomorrow night to not proceed. Now, having said that, there are a lot of things that we're going to need to deal with, and I'm just being straightforward, honest to everybody. We've already spent $850,000 through the engineering company. We have conversations going on with our legal counsel about our contract requirements with that. I've told the engineering company to not proceed with any further work. And in fact, I've told them we won't pay for their invoices. We just got an invoice from them. After we told them stop work, we got an invoice for more money, for more services. I'm like, no, you were told stop. No, we're not paying for that. So we have some hurdles to overcome. Should the vote be no, we have some hurdles to overcome with the contracts that have been signed, with the loans. The state loan actually doesn't expire until next year, so we have some time to try to work through some of that stuff. Depending upon that vote tomorrow night, I'll be setting up some meetings with, is her name Jennifer? I'm getting different agencies confused right now, with Black Hills.
Seats, yeah.
What's the last name?
Seatsman or something?
Yeah, correct. So I'll be setting up meetings with her following tomorrow night's vote, and see what our next steps with her. So I guess real quick, I guess that's the summary as best I can do it, and off the top of my head. And I didn't even practice this speech.
Yes, Director.
So Larry, when you sent out this survey, what were you asking for money? Or what would the assessment be that they're voting on? How much per month? Or?
We didn't break it down into month. We broke it down into a total dollar figure of what it would. It works out to about $225 a month,
Okay.
approximately. The survey that we sent out, I should have brought one, that was my mistake. The survey that we sent out identified the funding sources, there's 5 funding sources, identified the 5 funding sources and listed them. It stated the amount of money that we've incurred to date, and it identified the approximate assessment amount that each property would have to reimburse over the 40 years, 30 year loan cycle. And I think it was like $225 a month, because it was like $40,000 total.
So as you probably gathered, we're inclined to rescind that 125,000.
I understand that.
What does that do to you if we do that? Because you can't use that for anything right now anyway.
No, we can't use that for anything. But let's just say the table's turned around completely. Let's say the table's turned around and we would need to put in some kind of sewer system. We'd have to go back to the drawing boards anyway, literally. We have to go back and do some engineering. We have to go back and do some cost estimating. We have to go back and do some financing. At that point, we might come back and ask for the $125,000 back or some amount of money back. I understand you have presentations and requirements that you have to do to incorporate into your budget. We would have to do that. What does it do? It's not money that we've already incurred. It's not money that we've used. It's not money that we have, put in the bank or anything that we got to write you a check back for it. So at this point, I don't think it doesn't adversely affect us if you were to rescind. I don't see where that is it's not a deal breaker to us. Without being a little bit of a smart ass, we're already $150,000 in debt. We don't need to owe you all too.
Now, you said your official meeting to possibly not go forward with the project is tomorrow.
Tomorrow
correct?
night.
So technically, as of today, even though you guys have slowly wound down everything so that you don't incur any more costs on the project's still technically alive, and for whatever reason.
That's correct.
There is a possibility, even though probably smaller, minute, that it could go forward.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
I'm a little apprehensive to rescind when tomorrow it might still be alive or it might be dead when we have another meeting in August where we could do that, and then we could figure out everything that we could, how the untangling of all the grant funding and the matches and all that can be figured out.
As the president, I would appreciate that from this group. If that could be an option to wait till August. My goal had been to have that, and I said that the last time, was to have the meeting last Wednesday and be able to come in here and tell you what the results were. We set up the schedule in the survey. It set up the schedule saying, here's your deadline, which we established as July. I'd have to look at whatever last Wednesday was. Was that July 10th? I don't even remember right now. Whatever last Wednesday was. We established that as the deadline for the submittals. But like one of our board members had a family friend death and wasn't able to make last Wednesday, so we had to reschedule. My hope had been to come here and give you the results of that. Instead, I can give you the results of the survey, but I can't give you the board's final decision yet. So my apologies for that, just didn't work out. I would appreciate that if y'all could wait one more month.
That's just my thought. If we've been holding on this money since about 8 years.
Really?
That-
Has it been that long?
Oh yeah. The initial presentation was the day I joined the board. And that was a special election in May of 2018. And they presented this proposal, like in the high level concept of, hey, we're thinking about this and asking. So in my opinion, I know we've talked about it, we've kind of drug it on all year, but I think one more month with the project still technically being alive wouldn't hurt, and then we can make sure that all the rigmarole is taken care of, so when the money is rescinded, he's not getting an angry call from Black Hills Council of Local Governments, what do you mean the West Dakota pulled their money, is my thought, but that's just a thought. Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, I was all ready to make a motion to rescind it, but since Larry would rather just keep it, it's just a number in our spreadsheet, so it really doesn't affect us too much other than the appearance of it, so I agree with Mr. Mack there.
Any other comments from any other board members or questions for the presenter?
I'm curious, but the presentation in 18, was that for the pressurized system or the gravity?
Gravity, and it went to gravity, and then it seemed like around 20 when COVID hit, it went to the pressurized because the gravity system jumped up to 20 mil, and then this was back, because the original presentation had about 6 million. And that was with the gravity, and then it went to pressure, and then it was 10 for the pressure, and things were looking up, and then it went up again to, like what you said, double the price. So,
I've disputed every number I've seen until even the last ones I've seen. I still dispute the validity of it. I'm concerned the cost is even more, actually.
any other questions from any other board members? Thank you for the information.
Okay, and your next meeting is August, is this the, where are we on, the second or third Wednesday?
August 11th.
Second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday?
Second
Okay.
Tuesday.
August
Or
11th.
Tuesday, I'm
And,
sorry.
and you'll meet in August, right?
Yep.
You don't? Okay, I'll be back to then.
Okay, see you then.
Any other questions? If not, I'm gonna dash out the door and
No?
go chase water around an alfalfa field.
Yeah,
All right?
don't melt.
Thank you all. I appreciate your consideration and your time and what you do here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark, could you grab that blind behind you? Because every time I look at, I get blinded by that windshield.
Down or up?
There's a song
Just
about
like that,
that.
that's perfect.
Blinded by the
Anybody
light,
else?
right? Song about that.
Dan, are you all right?
Okay.
Man for Ben's Earth.
Wouldn't hurt to close it.
All right.
I thought you were blinded.
It's not there
I
now.
thought it was my head.
As long as I'm, how about our audience, same thing?
Okay, item number 8 is 2027 draft budget presentation, and that is from our admin.
8 went to 11.
It did go to 11.
Yeah. Didn't we just
Or did
change
it go to-
places, 8 and 11?
That should be it.
Oh. Okay. So then we are at the approval of the insurance expenditures, is that correct then?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so in the packet, on page 10 is the premium due to Chubb, and that is for the workman's comp insurance, I think essentially what it is. That will go from September 1st of 26 to September 1st of 27, and that is $301 for our insurance. And then second is the South Dakota Public Assurance Association, or whatever it stands for. And that has not been, the actual dollar amount has not been received yet into our office. I did have a meeting 2 weeks ago with, for what they call a loss control review. And it is a company, SBI, and I don't even see on the letter what SBI stands for, but they are contracted by the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance to conduct what they call a loss control program with the various members. And so we met, and simply it was just a review of the operations of the board. And since we do know, we have no permanent employees and that type of thing, it was very, very straightforward, very simple. And after that meeting, then Carla Sandecker was her name, who was the loss control representative. They have a form that has to be signed by the chairman and submitted back to them. Members that complete this loss control survey, and then SBI will submit the completed form to the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance, and then we get a discount rate. Don't know what that discount rate is, but there's a discount rate. And so the requirements of this survey, which they do every 7 years, needs to be completed within 60 days, and and I'm just gonna go ahead and do it now. So they have one, for us, one recommendation. We're under what they call a special district, and they really have no hoops that we have to go through except to read this statement so everybody's aware, and then it needs to be signed by the chairman, and then I'll get it submitted. And so the only thing was, they call it priority A because it's the only priority issue that we need to take care of, and I just simply need to read this statement. It is recommended that this entity contact the government policies hotline for civil legal issues that a local government may encounter. This service is intended to support, not replace, the existing legal advisor. Topics that can be addressed through this service include elections, planning, zoning, tax increment financing, regulatory compliance, conflicts of interest for public officials and public employees, open meetings, public records requests, and other general governmental issues. Please see the GPH brochure for more information, and I have no idea what GPH is. It's not discussed anywhere else. So, what I didn't know, and I will post these in the office, is the SDPAA hotlines for members, and this entitles the office to 1 free hour of consultation with a lawyer that's retained by South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance to investigate these areas that I just read. Okay, so that's what it is. And so it just has that information on here on the kind of things you can do, the scope of the services, and like I say, I'll have these posted in the office. And so that has been taken care of. The form that had to be sent in, and that is on page 11. You can see it has a due date of July 10, and I submitted that at the end of May. And it was just putting in the new values. The only thing that really changed was the operating expense, the levy amount. And so that has been submitted. Once everybody that's a member of SDPAA submits these, then the insurance statements go out, and they need to be received prior to August 1. That's what they told me. That's why I'm presenting this now instead of next month. So sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the 1st of August, we will receive the bill. Last month it was $1,712, and that was essentially the same, maybe a few dollars difference than it was the year before. So I'm not expecting, and there's no reason to think that it's going to be any different. So I don't know if you want to just approve that when it comes in, I pay it, or we do an email vote. I mean, I guess that's up to you, because I don't know what it is. It's not going to be $2,500.
I think you should call the hotline and ask them how we're supposed to pay something we won't have the ability to approve until after it's due.
And that's not on the list.
Can we approve it in July?
This is July.
I'm sorry, I need it by August, okay.
So that's the story. I don't know if you want to call it a predicament or not, but it says at the top in this red on page 11 that if they don't receive this renewal packet, which I did submit, and we did do the loss control, that the auto renewal will be a 3% increase. So that would be the max without having submitted these things and doing the loss control, of which both of those things are done. So it is going to be less than 3% over the 1712 that it was last year.
So the payment is part of the renewal packet? Is that what they're saying here? It says it's the renewal packet.
packet is this,
Right, but is the
which I
payment
sent
part
in
of
in
that?
May.
Okay, because it says that the complete renewal packet, not the payment, is not received by due date.
The due date is July 10th.
Right, but if it's just the packet that needs to be received by
Yep.
then the auto renew 3% shouldn't kick in.
Yeah, so everything has been submitted to keep us less than that 3%.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we approve the insurance expenditures.
Okay, there's
I'll second.
seconded by Mullally.
This happens, it happened every year when I was admin too.
So how did you handle it?
Sometimes they just let me go longer, and I would say that we should just pay it though, because it never ended up being much different than the previous year.
Okay. Any other discussion on
Kind
that?
of an informal organization.
To me, it's not worth trivializing over what 3% would be $50 or whatever.
So I'll second that.
Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the insurance expenditures state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
And I have a question on the Chubb, that's for workman's comp.
Yep.
That covers the directors and then volunteers too.
No, that's the policy that we acquired to cover these volunteers that we have working on, like the erosion control projects
Okay.
and things like that. This would just be the second year we've had it. We acquired it last year for the first time.
And then I will have you sign this after the
Yeah.
meeting.
Sounds
It's
great.
submitted.
And then just for clarification of the motion maker, this is where the 2027 draft, or did you move it, or did we move the funding request for the resilient headwaters up and move the,
So we should be on 11 now.
okay. And that is the 2027 budget draft request. Am I understanding that correctly, or?
No, we should, we've done Larry, right? We've done
Yep,
original item 8.
yep,
And then we just did 9 and 10 was 10 was moved forward.
okay.
Okay, yes, you're correct, 10, not 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this messed up. This is 10.
Okay. There we go.
There.
And so
So
we're up.
should we be at 8 with the draft budget presentation?
Yeah, that's where, but I just wanted to make sure because yeah. Yeah. So item number 10, that was previously 8, 2027 draft budget presentation. That is our admin again, Larry, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so that is on pages 8 and 9. And so on page 8, you can see the 27 levy is $283,277. And the current year, the total will be, do I have that down here? Should be in here. Projected tax revenue, yeah, 264,755. And so of that, we've received $155,862.40. So projected carryover in 2027, $763,037.72. And current funds available right now, $1,126,314,000 or $314.72. Okay. And then the second page is just a breakdown of the expenditures. So the director's admin, professional services, fees, and then the individual projects, again, that shows original budgets dispersed and the remaining for 2027, of which feeds into this first table on page 8. But if I recall, the information on page 9, the second table, that feeds into the format for the proposed budget that gets sent to the newspaper who lists the projects. And I don't have one of those in front of me, but
Any questions or for Larry on the levy request? Yes, Ron.
On page, well, whatever page it is, 9? 9. Are any of the projects, the Star Village, LaCroix, SDS M&T, Cornerstone, do they have dates that go beyond December of 2026? I don't remember.
I'd be pretty certain that several of them do. I would have to look back at paperwork.
it's on the timeline.
The previous Gantt chart looking thing?
No, the only one that continued, looks like 2 that continue through are the stream gauges and the 319 project. Okay, yes, so those would close at the end of 26.
So then we'd want to modify this table to
Yeah.
reflect that, at least at this point.
So that one, that one, those 4. Okay, so the correction would be then what's shown as proposed budget for 27 would be 0 for those 4. So the current disbursements would remain the same for this point in the year.
So are we changing the budget column on the far right? Is that what we're on?
Yes. So the Star Village project, LaCroix project, SDS M&T, and Cornerstone projects end at the end of 26. So the 27 budget for those 4 will be 0,
Okay.
which will change the numbers in the last few lines
Yeah.
of that total. Yep.
So I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Larry, on page 8, that table there, the second line from the bottom, it says total 2026 projected revenue. Should that say 2027?
Oh, I didn't get that one changed, yes.
And then the one below that, is that the funds available at the end of 2026?
wait a minute, I think the,
So I'm thinking that's what we're starting the new year with.
yeah, I think the 2026 projected funds that shows in that yellow column should either be labeled end of 2026 or beginning 2027.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
would clarify
Yeah.
it.
Question, Mr. Chair? So the funds projected on page 9, proposed budget 2027, for example, 14,675. So we're projecting that that's leftover funds from 26 that will be in the budget for 27? Is that
No,
correct?
that number will be 0 now.
Okay,
And-
so then the
But
money.
there's 14,675 left in that
Right.
fund.
Right, so that's money if it's
So.
It's
6
approved
months
through the
to-
end of December. If
Yes.
it's not spent by then it goes
Yes.
back into the fund.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
clarify. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
How do we need a motion on this, or
To approve the
is
draft.
this just discussion? Or-
I have a motion to approve the draft budget and submit it to the newspaper for publication prior to the final approval, which will be in August.
So I do believe.
So I can
we-
change that text.
We can make it a motion, and then it's known, and then Larry has clear direction on what to do.
Yeah,
Because I think we always have this fun problem where we keep on asking ourselves about it, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of the draft budget for publication.
Second.
Okay, approval by McGregor, seconded by Young.
I'd like to make a substitute motion
Okay,
that this really deals with a levy request, that we request last year's amount of $264,755 as our levy request for 2027. In other words, we don't take the CPI growth addition that we're allowed, especially since we've reduced our budget. It sounds like we took some projects off of here. And it's I think like an $18,000 difference, which I think we can easily deal with. And it would give us the appearance of trying to control property taxes.
is there a,
That's my motion.
is there a second to the motion, to the substitute motion?
I'll second with a question, so that would deal with the box estimated max tax dollars available at 283,000 and change, includes the CPI increase.
Yeah, so that
Right,
would,
so we would not check that box, and we would instead request the same amount that we'd requested last year.
correct.
Right, so, yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, discussion on the substitute motion.
I think it would be a mistake to do that myself. It's not that much money, and there are projects in the pipeline that could eat up this money very, very, very quickly. And I personally see no need whatsoever to do that.
Any other discussion on the item?
What's the impact if we do this? That knocks us back forever, right?
Nope, we start back at the 264. So next year, when when the remaining board and the new board does this meeting, they're gonna figure out whatever the CPI is off of the 264 number instead of the 283 number.
283.
So it is
So
a
it is a,
reduction, but basically.
it is a permanent reduction proportionally every year.
Purport,
I mean,
Correct. Well, not really. We're allowed, this was thought of by South Dakota codified law. If it is a problem, I can't imagine not having 18,000 would be a problem. But we are allowed to do an opt-out, and that's why the opt-out is there. If something comes up that you didn't anticipate, you do the opt-out. So this would be kind of the automatic, what you're allowed without the opt-out, but we don't take that. We could still do an opt-out if we had a big event or something and we required that money.
Now, with the opt-out, that could go to a public vote, is that correct?
It could, it won't though.
Never
The
know.
Rapid Valley Fire Department has an opt-out of like 30,000 every year. It never goes to a vote.
So Chairman Mack, do you want to ask McGregor and Young if they approve the substitute motion?
No, because the substitute is replacing the motion, so
We'll
we would
need to-
first
Okay.
vote on the
replace it.
substitute and then revert back to the main
Copy.
motion. Yes, Dan?
The reason I seconded is, I've watched our surplus increase every year. We've had this discussion for, a number of years, and actually, I guess I went on the board 2018, year prior. I think it was the year prior. You'd probably recall, Dan, the board then had actually reduced the budget request by $10,000. But, I've just watched our surplus increase every year, and, there's lots of things we could be doing, but, it's not happening. All sorts of projects we could do, but I guess I see projects like Black Gap, and we could be doing a project like that, and we vote them down, and various other examples. And I had stated a year ago that if we continued increasing the budgets, that there was a pretty good chance, or the increasing the surplus, that I would change from supporting the CPI increase to holding back. And so from my perspective, to level off for 1 year in the big scheme of things is not of particular consequence. Projects like Green Valley, we expect to rescind that. That's part of our project liability at this point in time. The only really, we've got a 319 project, that's on the books that we'll be voting on here soon. Basically that project goes through 2018, so it's not inclusive of, only but a fraction, this year's levy. So, in good conscience, I can't continue taking a cost of living increase, or the consumer price index increase, and we just never seem to utilize it.
Any other comments? Yeah, Mark.
Chair, just a question, having not been through a 319 grant and unexpected expenditures and projects to come off of that, is there something that could happen that would be a significant expenditure for us next year or two?
Looking at the current plan, nothing that we can see, but just like Bar with the 25,000, depending on what the stakeholders want, the stakeholders do, they could put a little bit of a monkey wrench in there. So to say no, it's not needed, I don't want to say that until actually we start going down the road where you get better understanding of what the view is. But I would say it's not a 0% chance, but I wouldn't say that it's gonna happen.
Okay.
And so it, like you said, like Dan said, that project is built till 2028. So where the front loading of the cost is anybody's guess. But then you have people like Green Valley, who had a $6 million project and it's morphed up to 20, and then it comes down. So I can't really predict other than
Okay.
that today would be my opinion on the matter. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, we're almost certainly gonna rescind the 125,000. So that really overwhelms what we're giving up here. I think it's more of a public perception. I do hear from people as to what we're doing with this money, and it's hard to justify it.
And I think it's a principle thing as well. I really do.
Yeah, the idea is you come up with your budget and you figure out how to fund it, whereas we tend to do the other, we tend to take it max all the time. Basically have a category of extra money, and that goes in our bank account. Our bank account is almost like another project.
Hearing no other discussion, the substitute motion by.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
just a
yep.
quick question. Essentially, as I understand it, within about 2 years, we'll be right back to where we are
Yeah,
right now anyway,
in
right?
theory, or even higher depending if the CPI raises.
Yeah, depending
quicker.
on the CPI
Yeah.
rate, applying it to the lower number.
Yep.
It'll still boost that
Yeah,
as we
it
go on
will
every year.
continually go
you
up.
know. So we're really talking about losing maybe $20,000 for a year, right?
Yep.
Maybe 2 years, but we'll be eventually in short order back to where we are right now.
In theory, that's what happened 8 years ago when they, yeah, Dan.
Right, and that's relative to our budget request. The other factor I believe that factors in is the growth of the tax base within the county. You know, this budget request is based on, you know, the current tax base, but as that tax base increases each year, my impression, I guess, you know, perhaps you've got the numbers in front of you, Larry, but what our actual, you know, revenue stream is larger than what our request is because of the growth in the tax base. Is that accurate?
I think that.
Well, like I say, we get payment every month,
Well,
you know, on that. So I don't know what it is at the end of the year. But
I believe that growth is taken into account. If you look at this increase, I think it's actually about 6%. So somehow there's a CPI component, but there's a growth in there, I think, if I'm not wrong. And remember, once we get up to 350,000, if I got the number right, we're gonna have to start doing audits, so eventually there is another cost associated with going too high.
It is a partial factor of the growth in increased tax, basis on an annual increment. So it isn't just the consumer price index, it's a factor of
Yeah.
people moving to, our district that are then become part of the tax base.
Yeah,
So the more people come, the larger that tax base is, and
as it should, yeah.
and the levy goes up.
right, it's basically as businesses get built on undeveloped properties and homes get
Or
built
homes,
on lots. So in essence, my impression, whether it's accurate or not, is that with the growth that occurs, that, our actual next out-year revenue would be pretty close to what we would have if we, to this 283, and then I think the actual would be, another 20,000 or so above that 283. I think the growth factor essentially offsets, would offset the CPI factor is my impression.
I am disinclined to support the substitute motion just because we don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring. I don't like the idea of getting set back a couple of years in our funding sources. And there's a lot of projects out there that we could be supporting. And I agree that we've not done as good of a job with supporting projects that are out there. But I'm disinclined to support the substitute motion just because we don't know what's coming down the road.
And just a question to Dan Mullally, because I know Dan has done a lot of these budgets for us as the admin. we could approve the 283 today and decide to cut it back to the 2026 number in the August meeting if
Yeah.
we were so inclined. What we are really approving is the number that we are at least telling the public of what we're thinking. Would that be a correct statement? I know you
Correct, yeah,
felt.
we have to officially approve it again,
Yeah.
and there could very well be some changes then, so.
And would it be better on a technicality to approve the higher number today and then possibly, if the board decided to go to the 2026 number, it would be better to do that in August instead of having a change of heart and wanting to go to the higher number in the August meeting after approving the lower number today for the presentation in the paper?
I don't know, we could do it either way, I guess.
Because
I mean, we might have one more director.
And like, I understand where you're coming from, but part of me thinks it's a lot easier to drop it in August instead of trying to raise it in August just in case something came up. Not saying like I got a magical project coming in August or anything, but
Yeah,
that would be kind of my safety thing, and we've had the discussion, for many meetings, many years, about possibly taking the previous year's number. So, like, I understand the thought process, and I know Dan said that last year, what he said, to accept the lower number, but I personally think we should approve the 2027 number, and then possibly, if we truly have it in our hearts that we should take the 2026 number, change it officially in August, because I do not think people would mind if we took the lower number and decided in the official meeting, but the budget is then presented out so that it's not us trying to raise it, because I think that would look, public perception-wise, even worse than dropping it and starting with the number and going up. We've heard the public, we understand, and make that move. It's just my thoughts on the matter, but
well, I'd be fine with that, I'll withdraw my substitute motion then.
does the second approve of the withdrawal of the substitute?
I guess I do not. To me, a bigger factor, would we consider raising or lowering, the following month is, right now we're 2 votes short of a full board, and who knows which way those votes would go. I wouldn't speculate on that, so,
Well, then I would keep the motion.
Question on the motion too, and just procedurally, if we leave it where it is now, and then we reduce in August, do we have to present that new budget publicly and then vote again on that new budget?
No.
Okay, it can be finalized with,
Yeah.
with corrections in August?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, with that, the substitute motion by Mullally, seconded by Driscoll, is not to request the 2027 numbers and stay with the 2026 value. All those in favor of the motion state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Looks like that one did not pass. Would you like a roll call on that, Dan?
No, I think we got 4-3.
Yep.
So, motion fails?
Motion fails 4-3.
I guess, could I take that back? I would like a roll call
Okay.
for the minutes.
For the minutes.
And this is item 10 now? Was that the correct number?
Yes.
Yes.
Item 10. Okay, so a yes vote is in favor of the substitute motion, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Koth,
No.
O'Shea, absent. Driscoll,
yes.
McGregor,
No.
Mullally,
Yes.
Young,
No.
Mack,
No.
Klein,
Yes.
3, 4. Okay.
Now we move to the original motion by McGregor, seconded by Young, to approve the 2027 draft budget and submit it to the official newspaper for publication for final approval during the August 11th, 2026 meeting. Discussion on the motion. Yep.
I think maybe we should put in there, approve the draft budget with the changes discussed, since we did change some
Right.
things. You know, like the date on one of the columns and some of the projects went to 0, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And I've got everything marked here.
And the motion makers approve of the changes.
No, I don't think we need to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're approving the final draft budget as we agreed to it. I mean,
Okay. I'm just making sure that we're
Yeah.
aboard.
So what?
I mean, that can be put into the minutes, but it doesn't need to be in the motion.
Okay.
I'm just thinking it would make it easier if somebody went back and said, I wonder what they approved. But it's no big deal.
Remove that. Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion state by stating aye.
Aye?
All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries. Dan, do you want your name in as a
Yes.
nay vote? Now we're going to item 11, which is a funding request, Resilient Headwaters and Holistic Riverscape Restoration Planning, $35,000. Black Hills Watershed Collaborative. This would be a first vote. The director is Young, and I'll let Director Young introduce the presenters.
Okay. Lori, is it just you presenting today? Or your whole posse?
Just me and Hans.
Okay, so Lori Brown and Hans Stephenson.
Yes.
Lori has the longer hair.
In case you're Hi, thank you all for having us back. I have one quick correction before we get started. The total budget in the proposal you received says 75,000. That's actually 70,000 when I redid the math.
You
So
just
that was
you just took my question away.
I know.
Yeah, I know. I ran the numbers and I was like, oh, that's a typo. My bad. So the total budget is 70,000. The numbers in there don't change. It's just a miscalculation in the columns. And our request today stays at $35,000. So I want to first say thank you to Larry and the chairman for meeting with us and helping us navigate the grant guidelines and revise our proposal. We won't be doing a presentation today because you guys have all heard from us before. But we did focus on clarifying the scope of work, the deliverables from our contractor, as well as a more detailed budget. So if you guys have specific questions on the revisions that we made, we'd be happy to discuss those right now.
Any questions for the presenters?
So you're not going to present the new one, or?
I'm not gonna do a PowerPoint presentation,
Okay.
that's what I meant, sorry.
What does reach mean?
Reach mean is a stream section, and it's how you define where your project area starts and stops based on those characteristics of that stream. So things that define a reach can be a change in gradient or slope, right? It starts off pretty smooth and level, that's one reach, and then when it gets steep, you oftentimes break that into a different reach because those areas are gonna respond differently to management practices.
It's basically a segment.
A segment, yep, yep. And you can define those lots of different ways based on what your goals and objectives are.
And then our contract on this, it would be with the Black Hills Community Foundation?
They are our fiscal sponsor, yes.
So what is being signed here is between them and us.
Yes,
not us and you guys.
that's correct. As far as I understand it, Eric?
And one last thing, if you, that Eric Zimmer's also in the back of the room with the Black Hills Community Area Foundation.
So that will be on the signature page.
So this is an equal funding between us and you guys.
Yes, with cash match.
Right, yeah, so the community foundation has an individual donor who's put up $30,000, and then we have 5,000 of our own dollars for 35, which is half of 70.
Okay.
Even I know that now, and we're good to go.
Is this part of the Hammersley grant?
No, these are, no, they're outside of it. The donor could connect to it, but it's not the same dollar.
I'm gonna let Cope and then Lon.
Yeah, I guess, I actually talked to Bill about this, so, but I'll just reiterate, because I was surprised at how much things seem to have changed. It appeared that the fly fishers weren't contributing, but then according to Bill, they really are through it's in a different cell, in your spreadsheet or something.
Yes.
Which is fine, I just was surprised. At first I thought maybe they didn't support it.
For simplicity's sake, we included cash match in the budget and did not include in-kind contributions.
Yeah, and I saw the Beaver Dam stuff isn't really mentioned. That's fine, but, by the way, the 75,000 appears not just in that table, but on page 50, or bullet number 7, so when you go to correct it.
Yep, yeah, I
Okay.
needed to make that correction, yes.
Okay, I
So
know-
my main,
Oh,
my final, this probably happens all the time, but this is gonna be some kind of assessment report.
Yes.
And always the question is, we fund these things and what happens, I thought I saw something about a 10-year plan somewhere. I can't remember where.
Yes, this assessment will be completed in the next 12 months, and the intermediate results as well as the final assessment will be provided to the board. And then this assessment will become the foundation for a 10-year restoration plan with state and federal agencies. And part of that aligns with the Rapid Creek Watershed Protection Plan that Danner has put forward as well.
Okay, so
But this
I'll
project
just-
itself is 12 months long.
I'll just assume that's gonna happen. And it's not gonna gather dust on the shelf somewhere.
Yep.
Thank you.
okay, Ron had a comment.
Well, first off, I had a lot of feedback for you last time, so I think you did a really good job of incorporating that in various ways. One technical critique I would ask for in the future is the inclusion of that in-kind
Okay.
kind of contributions, so we have a perspective on that other than just the cash.
Yeah.
Number item 6 on page 50.
And then I did quite a bit of reading because it's kind of an interest area of mine, and I think last time you said you were gonna do some bidding, but you were working with this Anna Branch people.
Yes.
Well, I think it's nice to know that you now have basically a contractor and you can look at what kinds of work they've done, so, it appeared to me that they were pretty well armed for, this kind of a project, and that we're gonna see some things that won't just be focused on beavers necessarily, but we're gonna look at other kinds of causative elements, that are in the watersheds, because, every stream reach or watershed segment, or sub-watershed may not be, a suitable location
Yeah.
to try and do BDAs or PLAs or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. The structures got named Beaver Dam analogs like 10 years ago, and unfortunately that stuck forever now.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of different tools in the toolbox, but we get kind of stuck on that title, unfortunately.
Well, and some of the causative items, may be rectified by other means, riparian fencing.
Yeah.
Right.
Or where we can come into play then potentially, even though it's not in the 319 area, we could be a partner in that, et cetera.
Mhm.
I did note that you're gonna use this as a foundation document for the GFP for other watersheds and conservation act deals. Is that in other water districts and other counties as well?
Yes, so this is the first time that this type of assessment is happening in the Black Hills, which is why we're working closely with this contractor from Utah. But we hope that it becomes a bit of a knowledge transfer and that we can develop some local capacity to do this type of work. And Game Fish and Parks is putting forth a proposal for Box Elder watershed. And so we're hoping that they can kind of learn from this one and then do this assessment in-house for Box Elder.
Okay, that's, glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Just one more comment. I won't be on the board next year. My 8-year term or 2 terms will be up, but these are the kind of projects that I think, the board that's coming up would be good to consider, as a directly a water-related project that has impacts, on our watershed that is part of our district, the watershed, sub-watersheds.
Yeah, Dan?
Will the contractor have to travel to the Black Hills?
Yes.
And is that built into your numbers here, the travel?
Yes, they will travel out here in the spring to do field validation with local staff, and I prefer that they don't include itemized travel expenses in their invoices. It just gets more complicated when you're trying to pay invoices. So we ask them to include that in other ways in their contract. But yes, they will travel out here.
I think this kind of got answered. The previous proposal was very heavy on the beaver dam analogs. Would it be accurate that this assessment would be focusing, but among other things, on good locations for that work?
Yes, so beaver dam analogs are one tool in the toolbox.
Right.
And it'll help us identify where those structures are most appropriate. It'll also help us identify where those structures are not really going to be a good fit and other types of restoration are more appropriate to move us towards our outcomes. So it's not beavers everywhere, it's a risk assessment of what's most appropriate where and why, based off of that condition and the stream function.
Sure. So a comment, on page 15 in listing project partners, one of them that's listed is the Department of Ag and Natural Resources.
Yep.
So for the FYI, for the board, I did contact Nate Anderson, who's basically our local contact here, for our 319 work, and just said, hey, have you heard of this before? And he said, yeah, they actually have been in discussion, and basically, I guess my take on it in speaking with Nate was that DANR is supportive of this work. They think it would fit in. Our 319 work is entirely below Pactol. If I understand, this is entirely above.
Yep.
But they would in essence dovetail in the future, in the overall kind of watershed planning, protection, restoration, improvement, game. So I guess that was, to me, comforting to know that it's not just words on paper. There has been some discussion there.
And for me, this is a really important time between the work that the collaborative is proposing and the 319 work. We could really, for the first time, have a watershed-wide impact. So that's pretty impressive.
Makes more sense than reserving the pipeline.
It makes us, yes, it does.
Okay, seeing kind of the general questions are over, is there a motion for the first vote for the funding of the project? Yes, Dan?
Yeah, I'll move to approve requested funding to Black Hills Watershed Collaborative funds to be managed by Black Hills. Well, I'm just reading off there. Area Community Foundation with changes as discussed. Since I don't want to vote on something that's wrong,
Okay.
because these numbers aren't right.
What we're voting on is supporting them to the tune of $35,000.
Right.
That's what we're voting on.
I know.
Approving a grant to them for that
Mhm.
amount.
I'll second the motion.
And
However it turns out.
And seconded by Coth, however the motion maker wants it.
That's fine.
Okay, discussion on the motion.
And this is a first read,
First-
is that how you say it?
First, we usually say vote, but
First vote, okay,
Yeah.
to approve, so to approve first vote of requested funds? Is that correct?
that looks good to me. Okay, discussion on the motion.
Then we require a second vote.
Yep,
vote
then in August, we'll
11th.
have the vote.
And then that's when you get your money.
You kind of picked a good time since we have two meetings in corresponding months. Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes, and next month, hopefully, it goes your way.
Thank you so much. Can I make one quick just note? Eric Zimmer with the Community Foundation. When you fill out the paperwork, presuming the second vote goes this way, I'm an authorized signer for the Community Foundation, but our preference is that our CEO, Chris Huber, is the signer on the grant agreement, so just make sure that's on the line if you don't mind. And then to the question you asked, I think, Scott, just to clarify, the Helmsley Charitable Trust has funded the Beautiful Black Hills Initiative, and that's where the dollars will come out of, but it might not necessarily be Helmsley dollars from this individual donor, if that makes sense. But it's all pooled together. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Only
So,
little
Lori,
people
if-
pay
if
dollars.
if you could redo that signature page and
Yep.
put the names of the signer and then Thomas as
We'll
well,
we'll
Thomas
work
Mack.
with them. I just wasn't sure if you needed that note
Yeah.
for your minutes or whatever, but we'll
Yeah.
get it squared away.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks,
Good.
everybody.
You got it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The reason I wanted that in there is because there are little sentences in here that say we're funding one half of the total amount, which is 75,000, so it's not just this table. So
Okay.
if you do your arithmetic, one half of 75,000 is a different number.
Item number 12 is to review and approve the scope of work for contracting for HDR to initiate works on the protection plans for Rapid Creek's 319 project. That is me. So the 319 committee over the last couple of months is working with stakeholders, the DANR, and getting their opinions on how to move forward with our 319 project as it been presented. In discussions with DANR, they had recommended HDR as a possible person to do the contracting for our 319 project due to their work in Spearfish Creek, doing a similar type of scoping project. The committee had discussed and decided to send them a request for a scope of work for the 319 project. They were handed the project packet, and what you see in the packet starting on page 19 is their response on how they would proceed forward. And then also on page 26 shows the possible proposal of $220,000 to $240,000 for the amount that would be used. What is tied with the DANR funding is $333,000. So there would be money prior to, for other parts of the project after this first step is taken. This has to be taken due to that the watershed in the sections are not impaired. And in addition to that, so this is the recommendation of the committee. HDR is here. I think Corey's here, and then I can't.
Caleb.
And Caleb are here from HDR to answer any questions that the board might have about their proposal.
Before he gets going, I've got one correction. Corey did submit, I guess, an official budget too late to include in the packet, but I have that here. So it's $231,440.
Okay.
When would work commence?
Mr. Chair, as soon as the contract was signed,
Is it signed? You ready to go?
potentially, we did not include a contract packet with this because this is, our first discussion with you on this project, and I can talk about it a little or a lot today as you wish, but with the assumption that, and it is stated as draft, and I was gonna say this at some point, it's draft because without a lot of conversation with you, we could change things at your directive. We're comfortable with the scope as it is. We're comfortable with the feet as it is, but if you're like, this is too much, this is too little, having that discussion, we can adapt it, develop the scope of work, and I assume that we would, or develop the contract language to attach the scope of work with it. If you have a template you'd prefer to use, you could provide that. We could have that ready to go by the August board meeting to actually have signatures, if that is your pleasure.
Hey, just for my own edification, where's segment 1?
Mr. Chair, it's.
Rapid Creek, what is it?
Dakota, right?
Segment 1
Segment
is.
2 is Pactola to Canyon Lake.
Yep.
Segment 3 is through Rapid City. Where's segment 1?
Upstream of Dakota.
Where we just approved the watershed stuff? That would be segment 1? Okay.
And you can address any part, you don't have to address me. We're a little bit more informal
Okay.
than the legislature. And
Just, well, unfortunately, I've presented to a lot of legislators in Wyoming the last couple of years, so I try to make sure I follow the rules. If it works for the board, I could talk through kind of the process and just give you a high-level overview. I thought I'd give some quick introductions since we're unknown to the board. Essentially, some of you I know, I have worked with in the past, some of you I think are new to me, and vice versa. I thought I could give a quick overview on just a watershed protection plan versus a traditional watershed assessment, MDL, unless you feel like you have that kind of covered.
Please,
Yeah,
I'm,
please
I'm
do.
super excited you came, and I know
Okay.
you got a 25th wedding anniversary, so I plan not to hold you too long,
Yeah,
but
we'll try to be brief.
feel free to walk us through this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Introductions, we'll start with that, and then we'll go and end with the project overview. What are we talking about today and why? Then I'll quickly talk about some of the key aspects of the scope of work. I'm not gonna talk about the specific details in there, just conceptually, what are we trying to accomplish? And then, obviously, we've covered the fee, which is my last bullet. So, introductions. My name is Corey Foreman. I am the Dakotas, Wyoming area water resource management market sector lead for HDR, so I cover North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. I'm a lifelong resident of South Dakota, lived in Rapid City essentially my whole life, with the exception of, I did move away for a few years and went and got a wildlife management degree from Montana State University in Bozeman. Had a lot of fun back in the getting that degree. First job out of college was with the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks in the Fisheries Department. That's where I first met Mr. Koth. Worked with the Coldwater Fisheries Group for a few years, and at the end of that that career, I guess, or where I transitioned away from biology and into engineering, was I was working with the department. This is bringing a lot of things back to the beginning for me. Working on a project to assess the impacts of urban stormwater runoff to the fishery in Rapid Creek. Working with my supervisor at the time, Jack Erickson, ended up getting a master's and PhD on that project. Through that process and working with the South Dakota School of Mines, I was like, this engineering thing seems like it has some potential. So I went back to school and got a master's in civil engineering with the emphasis on water resources with Dr. Scott Kenner. That's where I first met Dr. Stetler. Took his geomorphology class in the early 2000s and graduated with my master's in 2004. I spent the next 12 years working on watershed assessments, water quality, watershed management, water quality assessments in Minnesota, South Dakota, and Wyoming primarily. And that was all prior to me joining HDR in 2017. So when I switched firms, joined HDR, where I've been the market sector lead for the last several years, doing a wide variety of projects, including watershed assessments, water quality work, fish passage work, a lot of infrastructure design. Currently project manager on a dam in Wyoming, working with an irrigation district to repair tunnels. So anything water resources related falls in my purview. And then over that time, we've really grown a robust water resources group to effectively deliver this kind of stuff back home in South Dakota, which Caleb is part of that. I'll kick it to him.
Thanks, Corey. My name is Caleb Hedman, born and raised in Rapid City. Went to Central High School and then got my bachelor's, my master's at School of Mines in civil engineering with the water resources emphasis. Also was under Dr. Kenner. Since graduating, I have worked for HDR, so it's been 5 years now. I've actually presented at the board 2018, 2019 for the School of Mines research portion of the Western Dakota Regional Water System project. I was on that team, so it's good to be back, recognize some members. I'm a licensed engineer in South Dakota. I was the lead engineer on the Spearfish Creek watershed assessment. My work has mainly revolved around hydrologic and hydraulic modeling. I've dealt with transportation projects, roads, bridge hydraulics, done one-dimensional, two-dimensional HECRAS modeling, some GIS work, and just honored to be here with you guys. Thank you.
The next item I was gonna talk about is just give a little bit of a project overview and what is a watershed protection plan. In particular, I mentioned a lot of my work was watershed assessment, water quality assessments of impaired water bodies, which if you've ever heard the term, the end outcome of that is you write what's called the total maximum daily load report, or TMDL. Okay, this is very different than a TMDL, and in some ways it's better, some ways it's worse. It's better because we're not dealing with impairments. Let me just say that. In this case, so the TMDL program has been going on for a long time, guided by the EPA to look at an impairment. You have water quality standards. Every state's required to have them. You have water quality standards that, when those are exceeded, it is listed as impaired. TMDL is, the purpose of it is, what is the source of that impairment? How are you going to fix it? Okay, very, very broad overview, right? And what we're talking about today is watershed protection plan. In recent years, the EPA has been looking at this, and they've done a lot of work focusing on impairments. They spend a lot of money through the 319 program. But why should we just look at the impaired water bodies? Shouldn't we be looking at something, that is at risk of becoming impaired, or that we just is a high value to the community that we want to take steps and invest some money in through the 319 program and other areas, invest an effort in to make sure it doesn't become impaired. And so in that regard, the burden of proof to get an approved watershed protection plan is not as high as a TMDL. And that is somewhat reflected in the scope of work, where it's much more, we're not proposing to do any detailed field work as part of this assessment. We're not looking at doing any sophisticated watershed water quality modeling as part of this, because in a TMDL you have something called reasonable assurance. You have to have reasonable assurance that you understand the sources of that impairment, and that you have a plan that can be implemented to improve that impairment to meet that total maximum daily load. Because we're dealing with something that's not impaired, what we can do is you take a high-level description, you look at available data, look at the characteristics of the watershed, both spatially, you look at the flow characteristics, you look at the water quality data that's existing, and you talk to stakeholders, which is, what is important to them, what do you see as potential threats to the watershed. You write that up in a report. And so you don't have to have that reasonable assurance that these BMPs will meet the goal. And so in that regards, if your goal, and this is what the feedback I'd like from the board, and something we can develop together as we work on this project, well, what are your goals? And if the goal is just simply to check the box to get an approved watershed protection plan, that's pretty straightforward, and we can do that. If your goal is to really establish the framework for putting practices on the ground, working with stakeholders for the next 10, 20, 30 years, like projects that the Central Big Sioux has going on. I saw Jay Gilbertson was at their meeting last month. Like they have going on in the Bellefoos River or James River, all have ongoing efforts where 319 money can be used to put practices on the ground to help fund the stuff like what was just talked about beforehand. Well, that's a lot more difficult, right? That takes a lot more effort, and so that's where we have a cost proposal up there. That can be less if we want to put a lot less effort into it. It can be a lot more if you want to spend a lot more time with the stakeholders. What we proposed and developed, Caleb and I and the team, is what we think is a nice middle ground, not knowing all of the stakeholder efforts you have going on with the previous group and others, to be part of that, to really talk about our project, to lay out the framework for future successes. We want to put a good effort into it, but we didn't put out a plan that could last for the next 2, 3, 4 years, really get the community excited about it. So it's at the board's pleasure, really, how much stakeholder engagement you want to do, how much do you want us to lead, how much do you want to lead for yourself. So what I think is a nice threading the needle of a good proposal that gives the stakeholder engagement necessary to get an approved plan and to set the foundation for future segments. If this goes to a 319 segment 2, then you can build on the efforts that are laid here. So, but again, emphasizing this, if you have comments, this is a draft. If we've missed the mark on the level of effort, high or low, on any of these tasks, let's have that discussion. So that's really TMDL versus watershed protection plans, simplistically. Before I get into really talking about the scope of work, any questions on what a watershed protection plan is, how it differs from an impaired water body assessment?
So you're mostly working on finding the cause of the water, the cause to resolve that, so it doesn't continue with the degradation of the system?
Sort of. That is part of it. That is 100% true if you're doing a TMDL. You have to identify sources of impairment. In this case, it's a little bit more of a gray area because what we're really doing is talking about the beneficial uses, which are slightly different than, just going into the weeds a little bit, I apologize. It's just cool stuff. Water quality standards have water quality criteria and beneficial uses. And so the water quality criteria, numeric criteria is what we have in South Dakota. That's when you have too much sediment, is exceeding it.
Right.
And that's going to be your primary focus of an impaired water body, a TMDL assessment.
Right.
Where in this case, in my mind, you can focus on the beneficial uses, and it can be a little more qualitative in what are the potential threats to those beneficial uses. This is where Ron and I have talked many years. We're doing the work in Spearfish Creek. We've done work in north of Spearfish, where hydromodification can be an impairment to a beneficial use, but it does not relate to a water quality criteria. And so you can talk about threats to those beneficial uses, but you don't necessarily have to, do sophisticated modeling because it's not impaired. It really, in my opinion, relies much more on stakeholder input than a traditional TMDL. You can do a TMDL with no stakeholder input, because it's all about the water quality data, the models that you're doing, where are the sources coming from. You don't have to have any stakeholder input. To take it to an implementation project, you have to get that stakeholder input. In this case, identifying potential threats and degradation within the watershed is much more of a literature review exercise. It's talk to people, make sure you capture what's going on in the watershed effectively you don't have to do all of that to capture this is the specific sources. So it's a little bit of a gray area, I apologize.
Okay.
So what you're saying is more or less that you just have to identify the possible problems or what the stakeholders see the possible problems in the future in this type of report instead of the TMDL where it's like, oh, this cliffside is going in and sloughing off and putting a whole bunch of sediment into the water body. You just have to get a general understanding of what the stakeholders believe that could be possible problems in the future / what they want the water to do. Like, for example, like Rapid City, just as a hypothetical, wants a clear water source to pull for their irrigation and or water usage. That would be what you would talk to the stakeholder, or like the trout fishermen or GF&P saying, hey, we would like a body that fish can actually survive in. That's kind of what you're doing instead of going, why is this water bad for whatever usage, correct?
Correct, yeah. Mr. Chair, that's a TMDL is much more quantitative. You have to have actual numbers, loads per day, where this is going to be a lot more qualitative in describing the beneficial uses and what are the end goals for this process moving forward. The literature review is another one that is a little bit nebulous. We could spend a lot more time on it, or a lot less time on it, not a lot less, but it's a nebulous task, but it's to describe the information that's out there in such a way that it sets up the protection plan at the end.
So this plan is for $231,000 is the total for the 3 years, or is that for 1 year for the request the next year to come back?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Klein, that is, it is for the full project, for the full 3 phases. candidly, I think we could do it before the end date. I put an end date in there, not having talked to this board. I didn't know kind of what your expectations were. Hadn't really got into the funding, on how the funding, if you had all of the money needed for the entire project. We're doing it in phases with the contract with DANR on Spearfish Creek, because they're drawing upon this funding source. You know, they have 319, they have 216, they have all sorts of clean water programs that they have to draw upon, and it kind of we have to match the grant cycles.
Yep.
And so they chose to do it in 3 phases, and almost each of those phases will probably take a year, because we do 6 months worth of work, and then it takes 6 months to get the new contract in place. We propose this as one scope of work. We can break it to 3 phases if you choose to, but that just slows things down. If it's fully funded up front, a year is probably not out of the realm of possibility.
Okay,
That does
excellent.
not seem ridiculous to me. So that date, and I would like to know what your goals are for moving forward with the 319 program. We can adjust that date to match your goals. We can leave it and always outperform it. We can change it at your request.
I just didn't want to leave this for the next board, you know, to come on
Nope.
and, yeah, okay.
Honestly, there's benefit to us for doing it in 1 year versus 3. Escalation, people move, people change. You know, and then you bring somebody else in, maybe makes more or less. You know, there's a lot more uncertainty to us financially the longer this goes on. We just assume get it done sooner than later. But there may be downsides to do that. If you can't go to segment 2 for a 319 project for 3 years, do you lose momentum in that time? There is always the opportunity to amend it if you so choose to, like on a stakeholder, like, and I think that was mentioned on some of the bar work, this is for the first phase, we finished this. If the outcome of this is, let's keep the stakeholder engagement going, we identify these people that we really want to incorporate into X, Y, or Z efforts that are ongoing or maybe new, to set up future successes. If your ultimate goal is, I think I heard somebody say earlier, not to have a document that sits on the shelf, which candidly, I mean, the less you spend, the more likely that is going to occur. You may find opportunities to continue to develop this, to get this to the ultimate, my goal, in my world, the ultimate success is if you can get practices and BMPs on the ground, you can actually improve the watershed, or in this case, protect the watershed. So,
And both.
for both, exactly. That's exactly right.
So anecdotally, so I come into a lot of this work as a landowner adjacent to the creek, as well as an avid fisherman. A lot of our issue historically has been the pulses coming out of Pactola. I've lost literally 10 feet of creek bank due to those pulses. And so that's something that's important to me. And then also, like, just even here in town, the bike path below the railroad bridge below 5th Street, there's a huge cave-in there where the city has put up some orange fencing.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to see not just the document, but the direction on how then we start to make those improvements system-wide. And, you know, some of that is going to be the negotiations with the Bureau of Rec and how they release water from Pactola, when they release water from Pactola. And so those are the kind of things that I'm interested in. And obviously, I like to drink water. And so that's important to us, you know, as a community. But so there's a number of angles that I'm looking at that I'm hoping that you guys are looking at as well.
Do you mix it with anything?
Did
Do
any
you
of
mix it
your
with anything?
work with the
Sometimes.
city
Yes.
result in the water reclamation department being initiated? Do you know?
Water reclamation for the city, not Bureau of Reclamation, just to make
Right.
sure I'm clear.
Right.
Honestly, that would be a better question for Ron Cope there. I'm not sure really what came out of that, because I went back to grad school, the study continued on after me. I'm not sure, to
Okay.
be honest.
That was part of it?
As I recall, it's been a few years ago now,
It's
like
been-
20.
Yeah.
The focus of the work that Corey and Jack were involved in basically was through Reach 2 and part of 3, which basically heads right into the water reclamation plant. So things that they did at the water reclamation plant in recent years, or still doing, I don't know, in terms of building it out, I don't think they were directly related to the work that Human Fish is doing in town.
Okay.
That was focused a lot on fish health and other end stressors related to fish health through the prime, trout fishery from Pactola down.
Okay. I just was, I'm like Director Young, at the end of this, there's some sort of action plan for sustaining and protecting the watershed, not just something that sits on the shelf, and something we could possibly fund or help fund to make happen. I mean, in the end, that we are actually accomplish something that we can leave in place beyond our tenure.
And to Mr. Young's comment, at the end of the day, this will be a watershed plan. We didn't take this, we did not scope out, I can't even, I apologize. I know in Spearfish Creek, we described a phase 4, which is really the next segment that's, working to get BMPs on the ground. So this is kind of a big picture plan where we will identify the types of practices, maybe locations for specific practices. And so if something comes out of it, there's this cut bank, it would really benefit for the city to work with that. We lay the foundation for engaging with, if the city's the stakeholder, other stakeholders, the design and the implementation of those individual practices are not included in this phase of work. So by no means is this the end, and
Right.
I don't think anybody here believes that. If you really want this to be successful, this is the first step. But the detailed implementation plans for individual BMPs or negotiations with Bureau of Rec, which would be, it really needs to leverage some of the work that I think Barr has been doing. I've been seeing the hydrology conference presentations, the reservoir operations modeling. That could be something that is identified as a key to success in this. And then you gotta get the right people to work with the Bureau of Reclamation, be that with us, with Barr, internally, school mines, USGS, whoever. So we're laying the foundation to take those more detailed conversations.
Okay.
Sorry, you kind of stepped out, did that make sense to you? Okay.
So you would say hypothetically, you had mentioned the possible phase 4, what you did with Spearfish is more the recommendation. Could this board, if there was funding available later on down the road, say, hey, we would like to talk about the possible phase 4 either through the 319 or just through our independent expenditures? Would you guys be interested in that to possibly have a future past what is being presented in the scope of work if the board decided to move forward and ask for more assistance or
Yep.
whatnot?
To build on the work you already done.
Yeah, absolutely. I really, when we get involved in these projects, we're looking for, trusted, we'd like to be a trusted advisor. I'm looking, there's a book out there called Client for Life. If I do my job right, I work with people for many, many years to come. Sometimes it's me, sometimes we bring in somebody more focused on the implementation specialist, and that's my former firm continues to work in Belfouche. One person has maintained that relationship for many, many years. That is ultimately our long-term goal. I mentioned a dam we're building in Wyoming. That started with an irrigation district master plan in 2016, and I've been working with the same irrigation district ever since. Our goal, my goal as a consultant, because it really covers something that is what I struggle with as a consultant. If I do a design board or design project for you, we give you a design, we build it, we go away. And I'm a relationship-oriented person, and I really am striving to become that trusted advisor. I don't like the one-and-done projects because it takes a long time for me to get to know you as a board and understand, what is success look like to you. I strive on being part of that and helping you find that success. So absolutely, we're coming to this with no expectations that anything will come beyond this, but if we're successful, we'd love to work with you long-term.
Mr. Chairman, the committee's in complete agreement with this?
The committee agreed to ask for the scope of work. That is what the committee had agreed to, and this is what they have presented. The committee has not said they approve the scope of work or changes need be, because we got this roughly on the 6th, and then attempts were made to try to get us together, and we didn't get together. So I would say the committee requested the scope of work, but the committee has not formally approved the scope of work by a vote or committee.
What do we need to do here today?
I would say this is technically a draft. does the board agree that, that a final version be completed and not in the draft paperwork with the actual budget that was presented? And then if the committee can meet with HDR to finalize, make sure everybody's thoughts are done. And then in August, if the board so chooses to approve, and then we sign the contract after the August meeting, would be probably the best. Like, I would love to sign the contract today, but this all says
Okay.
draft and it doesn't have a formal budget on it. And so I think the smart thing to do would be to wait, even though I kind of want to.
Do you need any action from us today?
I would say there would be no need for action unless somebody wants to make a motion to approve this with the changes and have the committee finish it up, and then that.
I would make that motion.
Dan?
Second?
I think we're gonna have to talk about some procedural things. I think the protocol we've been following is that, things that are coming out of committee, it's essentially a first reading. We cannot act on them until a subsequent meeting. Is that?
We have made that, and it is technically, the committee had asked for the scope of work, and if we're gonna try to be even keel, I would say that it would be probably.
That's actually a requirement of the open meeting law that we
Right,
can't act
right.
on it.
We-
Yeah.
I don't see that we can act on anything here today,
Because the purpose of the open meeting law is to prevent work from getting done.
well, we've been following that protocol for other efforts, so
No,
it's,
and I appreciate you bringing that up, and I would say that probably would it be agreed upon that we could work on it and they could submit a final proposal for a vote in August?
I'd be a lot more comfortable with the committee to put it forth with the proposal, say to go forward with this to the board and us vote on that proposal in August, rather than try to do anything today. So you get back to us about a draft edition.
So should the motion read, Young, seconded by McGregor, to approve the draft scope of work? And then indicate that the 319 committee will meet with HDR and bring it all back again in August?
Does that move us forward at all,
Be-
to approve the draft?
Because
Seems like an extra step for no reason.
if we approve the draft, that means what is presented is we're just going to make sure that the budget's on the page as presented, and it was presented in the meeting, so everybody has seen the presentation. So, and really there probably are gonna be minimal changes to it. I would say that it's more of a style and scope. I don't know, you're more on the open meetings law, Scott. Do you feel that we
Well,
would be?
when my understanding now of the open meeting law and conversation with the Attorney General's office is, when the committee reports back to us with a final version,
Right.
we have to lay over for one meeting before we can approve it in order to give the public the opportunity to comment on that. So I'm assuming the timing on all this isn't really critical.
Not for us, no.
I mean, we could start this in 2037 if we wanted to. Because we've got this.
You'd rather we didn't though, right?
So, I mean, that's what's gonna have to happen. When the 319 committee makes its final report to the board, we have to lay it over.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll withdraw the
Before
motion.
we can vote on it. So I think based on this discussion, I think the committee could go ahead and, put something final together that they would be recommending to the board, not as a draft, but as the final
Okay.
product to be approved.
Ron, you had some?
Oh, I kind of agree in some fashion that, the open meeting law, sometimes you get tripped over and sometimes you don't. Since the committee really hasn't made any kind of, recommendation on this per se, but it's been brought to the full board. I think there is that option if we wanted to. Again, timing isn't all that critical, but if the option is there, if we wanted to receive this as the full board, the only thing the committee did is ask HDR to bring this to us. So we
Yeah.
haven't made any recommendations. So we could if we really wanted to, we could move forward today without having, the committee go back and add the budget number in per se, because that may be all that's done in real life to adjust the scope of work. I mean, that may be it, and we burn off 2 or 3 months adding a budget number in. So that's just something to throw out there from my perspective. If we didn't want to just tread water, we could move forward, because this has been brought to the full board as a proposal for a fee-based project, and the committee hasn't done anything except ask for it.
You could look at it that way.
The only issue that I have, and like I said, I would love to sign this and get this going, because, this has been kind of tormenting me for the year, understanding how the budget, and then like the 3 months or 4 months in legal with Danner, with it saying draft on there, like, I just personally think that a final version needs to be presented, and like at earliest the August. So there are 2 options. We can kick this to be discussed with the committee, with HDR for the proper changes, which then we would run into the committee proposal in August, and it wouldn't be voted on until October. The other thing is, we could hash it out right now as a full board, then it would not get kicked to committee. They could provide it on the August meeting from the recommendation of the board, and it could be voted on in August. It's kind of up to what the board wants to do, just because, I don't want to get caught in a technicality, but I also would like to get this moving as quickly as possible, because it kind of helps with our budget problem of the large dollar amount in the bank.
I think the cleanest way to do it is option 1, and that's would be my preference, since we're not under a time gun. I think it's just much cleaner that way.
Yeah, Dan?
Well, I see, at this point in time, the committee has not made a recommendation. I see no way that we can act on this, but, we might find some innovative things to do. I think one thing that we absolutely need to do is for the committee to meet with HDR, before we move forward. The process was described, the committee made the decision to request a scope of work from HDR. I'll just be honest that I was, of 4 committee members, the lone committee member that recommended that we would issue a request for proposals and see what comes in there. So the vote was 3-4. I live with that. HDR has got the credentials. I'm sure we'll get a good product from HDR. But I have quite a few questions just things to talk about, before we go forward. One of the other things that we will need to deal with, of course, this expenditure, greatly exceeds our $25,000 threshold for 2 votes, required for 2 votes.
We already approved the money with the funding of the 319 project, so the money's already approved.
Well, so that's where I was going with this. If the board, is supportive of that, to me, the board could elect to approve this, with 1 vote. I would be comfortable with that. We've approved the overall expenditure, and in essence, this would be setting somewhat of a precedent for how we would do business with the 319, but we're not going to have other large expenditures in this first segment. That this essentially consumes the budget. So I guess in terms of trying to move it forward, I mean, this has taken quite a bit longer than I could have ever imagined. Some of it's been DANR, and quite a bit of it's been internal. We met with DANR and some stakeholders was it February, and here it is in August, and we're just now getting there. I guess one of the things in terms of trying to be innovative, would there be some way that we could, in essence, adjourn for 5 minutes, have a committee meeting, and the committee recommend that, contingent upon satisfaction, that we would, be able to vote on this in August? Is this something that could happen? If I've got a comfort level by the time we've worked through things, I could be comfortable with that if the rest of the board is comfortable with it.
I don't think you could reconvene the board meeting though after that, once it's adjourned without.
Well, you can't adjourn. Could we pause? Could we take a break? Anyhow, is there an approach we could take, along those lines?
I don't really think so, because the meeting would be continued on. And if there is a larger discussion that needs to be had within the committee, it would probably be better to have outside the meeting and have that discussion, and then bring it back to the board in August, and then deal with how it, following the procedures with the open meetings law. Because if it goes longer, shorter, what happens, because if Scott can hear the conversation, does that cause, because technically the meeting's on break, and I bet there are other groups that have figured this out, but I would say that if there is concern, we can always have an outside meeting, get it finalized, present it in August, and then vote for approval on the one vote in October.
Maybe Director Young's idea should be a contingent upon recommendation from the committee and approval of final draft of this amount. Maybe if we did a contingent vote, we could have this be that first vote of the funding, and then be able to finalize this in August and not prolong that. Is that, I don't know if that's acceptable for.
The funding's already been approved, and so basically what the board is doing in this one is saying, okay, we have the dollars available, we want them to actually follow through on it. So the vote is not for anything monetary, it's just more of.
Right, but there's a final number we have to approve, right, that we have to vote on?
The final number was the 133,000 with the 200,000 match of the DA&R, which was previously approved.
Okay.
That's the 319 program
Yes. Yep.
has been approved.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
a subset of that.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to find a way to have this be our first vote on that funding in our meeting, so in August with the final draft, that we could finalize that vote with a second vote. That's what I was
Well,
looking to achieve.
Our two-vote requirement is not derived from the funding, because we've approved that,
Yeah.
as Chairman Mack has said. It's derived from the provision of the open meeting law that says
Right.
when a committee of a public body reports back to that public body, you cannot have a vote on the report of the committee until the next meeting of the public body.
I think.
It's a stupid provision, but that's
Yeah.
what it says, and that's what the Attorney General tells me it requires.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't make any difference in terms of, as long as this whole deal is taken, whether we get it done, in August or October. It is a little frustrating, because the committee hasn't made a report at all. All we did is ask HDR to come, so they presented it to us. So I don't see the open meeting law applying in this case, but whatever. But as long as we have this in the air, I have another thought that I wanted to bounce off the board, because it sounds like the committee is going to end up meeting. On page 22, and this follows along with what we just approved our first vote on for segment 1 of the upper reaches of Rapid Creek. Under assumptions, the first assumption, it says water quality analysis above Pactola Reservoir will not be included. Well, if you look at the scope of work for what Anna Branch Solutions is going to do, they are not doing any water quality work above Pactola Reservoir. All they're doing is geomorphology, basically, and land use. So what I would kind of like to throw out there is, maybe we should ask HDR for a proposal to do that segment 1 water quality that would dovetail in with that Anna Branch stuff, and it wouldn't be necessarily part of 319. It would be a separately funded deal, but
then we could consider that to dovetail into that thing and have maybe a complete picture up there above Pactola Reservoir. And maybe it would work efficiently with HDR, since they're already gonna be doing water quality stuff for segment 2 and segment 3. Just a thought about how we might be able to do something more with some of our additional funds that would really be a benefit to that whole deal that we approved conditionally with one vote last time. Not associated with 319, so I don't wanna get that confused, but I just wanted to bring it up to the board, since the committee's gonna meet and talk to HDR. Do we wanna think about that, I guess?
And Ron, I think that's a great idea. It's a great big system, right? So if there's an impairment above Pactola, water quality issue above Pactola, it's possible that that's gonna come through the system.
Well, there are impairments up there.
Oh, yeah.
There are naturally occurring impairments, and so, for example, that Anabranch outfit is gonna see things, for example, on Hop Creek. And they're gonna see things on the North Fork of Castle Creek, and they're gonna see things there, but they're not gonna do water quality there, which needs to be dovetailed into their picture of what goes on or what doesn't go on those systems. And so I think it's a blind spot in that overall picture in what they're gonna do that we've approved. But I know it's confusing when I brought it up here, in terms of what we're doing with this project, but I thought I'd just bring it to the board as I saw it in the proposal and wondered if we should ask for some work to be done up there to get that picture completed.
I think that makes a lot of sense, depending on the cost. I mean,
That's what we'd ask
we'd be
these guys
paying
for.
the cost ourselves.
Correct. But I think it would be a valuable piece.
Yeah. So I guess what we need is if not a proposal, at least in a ballpark of what something like that would cost.
Well, if you could do a proposal by August, we could vote on it.
Yeah, then we could do that then.
Right, all at the
Yeah.
same time.
This isn't a committee deal, I guess this is a
Right.
full board
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of throwing it out there.
Yeah.
What's that motion?
I don't, somebody else can figure it out.
Okay, as the chair, here's what I'm going to state. I'm going to state that because the committee is probably going to meet on this we can have the motion, but it probably will not be approved until October. Now, Ron's counter idea is technically we could just, because it says review and approve scope of work, we can decide as a board to let that stay. We can also, if Ron wants a formal motion on the item to inquire about a contract for that segment 1 on Upper Rapid Creek, we could vote on that, requesting a proposal for that, and they could provide us with a proposal on that separate from the 319 plan, and that could be voted on. But what I'm hearing from the committee discussion is that the 319 group needs to meet between now and the August meeting to review and help HDR give a final presentation, which will be looked at in August, but cannot be approved until October due to the fact that the committee is going to give a recommendation and have comments, concerns, and discussion items. So that I'm kind of putting off on the table right now, determining as the chair if anybody has any objections to that. Hearing none. So, Ron, would you like to make a motion
Sure.
for the item?
And before you do that,
Okay.
Thomas, we should withdraw that first proposal then.
Okay, so the chair.
Withdraw the motion.
I would agree.
Okay, Young and McGregor withdraw the original motion.
So I'll make another motion, and it says, we request a scope and cost proposal for water quality analysis above Pactola Reservoir. Similar to what they're gonna be doing for segments 2 and 3 in the 319 program for our August meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Water quality evaluation, can we put that in there, Larry? Thanks. After I see it, it needs that word in there. Where would it go? Moved, Strummy.
There you are.
And what word?
Evaluation.
Evaluation.
Maybe just so it's a little more explanatory.
Larry, seconded by Young.
Okay, discussion on the motion. Yes, Dan?
I'll vote against it. And that said, the background on it, this is, it would be highly desirable to do that. I would be totally in favor of finding the right process to do it, but, you know, to try to do it now through a motion, I think is the wrong approach. I guess my perspectives, I'll try to work through it. This came up pretty suddenly, but, you know, the way this whole process evolved, you know, we never envisioned watershed and protection planning. You know, the way the project had evolved, you know, we were originally working with DANR for implementation, and there's a lot of behind the scenes wheels that turned, but eventually it came down to the fact that, well, I guess it's really gonna work out that you first have to do watershed protection planning for protection of high quality watersheds, you know, before you can do implementation. So, fine. Unfortunately, we were focused on segments 2 and 3. You know, number 1 wasn't in the picture. One could certainly be arguing, well, we should look at segments 3 and 4, or 4 and 5 also downstream. What do we want to do there? Look at the whole watershed. That could sure make sense. You know, I guess, I'm pretty sure, I guess a question for Corey, without doing a scope of work, would you be able to throw us a ballpark to the committee when the committee meets on what would it take to include number 1? Just a ballpark.
Absolutely.
Right, I mean, we wouldn't need a motion to find out what a ballpark is. To ask you to do a scope of work, to me, is premature. The one way to go about this would be for us to amend our 319 project with DANR and seek approval and additional funding to broaden our scope. You've done a lot of work. That would be a viable option there too.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Dan, I'm actually, Ron, thank you for bringing this up, because this was one of those things we struggled with on the segment 1. If we want to talk about segment 4 and 5, that's a different conversation. We could have that conversation as well. Note that when we talked about watershed, I actually would like to change the word. I use watershed assessment. I usually use the term watershed characterization in terms of, for task 1. We did say we would pull all the spatial information together for all. In my mind, we've broken the watershed into 3 segments, or into 3 separate pieces. To be blunt, there's going to be a set of maps, land use, slope, other things. And we said we would prepare the ones for above Rapid Creek, the spatial analysis, just because we're making maps in GIS. It's really no extra effort. And what happens upstream is going to affect segment 2 in particular, and will trickle down to segment 3. So we did include the above Pactola piece of the watershed for the watershed characterization, spatial analysis. I struggled internally. I do not think it's out of line with the project implementation plan that you've submitted to DANR to look at the water, the flow and the water quality above. And this is where I really wanted to have this conversation. I kind of assumed we'd meet with the 319 committee to have those kinds of discussions. If you add the water quality above, I do not think it's out of line with a 319 project of this nature. Because if you're gonna write a protection, you have to understand what are the sources of, the threats to that segment. Rapid Creek Pactola is a big buffer. But looking at a holistic watershed, we do that all the time. In some ways, I was struggling with, do we want to keep the budget as lean as we possibly could, not knowing really the pleasure of the board, the budget available. We made the choice of, you could treat Pactola as a boundary condition. adding water quality and flow analysis above water, Pactola, I don't think that's out of line with this 319 project at all. It's just at the board. Now, DNR might tell me I'm wrong. I haven't talked to them for a while. But if you wanted to add that in, I can meet with the committee, review this in depth, provide feedback in advance if you want. I can make any of those changes to get to a point where the committee meets. We could get to a scope of work that you could recommend moving forward with. Prior to that meeting, I could have this pulled into a contractual form. So we have because we have to have contractual terms and conditions. This is the attachment, scope of services. And we can have, there was two or three things that I thought might come up for discussion. Water quality was absolutely one of them. That was a long-winded way of saying I don't think the DANR would argue with you wanting to look at that as part of this 319 project, candidly. And it's not a big effort because we'd have efficiencies. We're already doing it for the segment 2 and 3, and we have a script set up. So all you're doing is downloading more data, running the script on multiple sites. So it's very efficient to do it now.
Yes, Sam.
Certainly, there's a lot of efficiency in doing it. The board certainly would have the option to fund inclusion of segment 1, without support from DANR. I'd bet, it's a 99%, if not 99.9, that they would approve it. One of the realities is, is it September is their deadline for submittals? I've never, gone through a process. This is our first time. This is my one and only direct hands-on experience, but, to whether they're called officially an amendment or whatever, we've already had the discussion with them. They would be open to that discussion. I think it's equally valid to ask. I guess segments 3 and 4, probably what they would tell us is, well, you don't need to do a watershed protection plan down there because there's impairment there. I mean, that's the difference. So they'd probably say, well, we really can't help you fund a protection plan for impaired segments. So, I'm reluctant to, bite this off until we talk with DANR about it. But I think it's something that, to me, I think would come very easily to add it on at any point in time. And I guess I would certainly prefer to, discuss with DANR ahead of time before we just take off on our own.
How hard would it be to write a separate plan and maybe incorporate it into the current scope of work? So like hypothetically, if DANR says no, and we wanted to fund it outside of that 319 money, is it too hard, or is it just you just pulling it out and going section?
It's very easy, Mr. Chair. If we want to include that in this scope of work, it's basically essentially just deleting that assumption. I put that assumption in there just to make sure it was very clear. We delete the assumption and we update the budget number. And maybe I add clarifying language where I say we'll do 3 sets of maps. We'll do all those 3 sets of water quality analysis. Like it's one sentence. Your question specifically was, is it hard to pull that piece of it out? Well, we already have the text. And so I would copy and paste that text. It's like a paragraph or 2. I could give that to you as a memo with a budget, and it would have an assumption, assuming that we do it at the same time we do the other work, and then you'd have the same budget number. So again, it's at the pleasure of the board. We can work through that. It's easy either way.
I guess I'd like to see it done that way, where we have a separate request that's done simultaneously, and we can look at it, funding it independently if it's not too costly. I'm in the same boat as Director Driscoll, is going through this whole deal with DANR, in South Dakota on a 319. I really don't want to get involved in that process in trying to amend something for what might be, $30,000, $40,000 at the most, when we have these discussions about too much money in the bank and they're not applying it properly.
Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing no more discussion, the current motion on the table, motion made by Coe, seconded by Young, is to request HDR to submit a water quality evaluation proposal for the Rapid Creek above Pactola at the August 11th meeting. Is the motion on the board? All those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay,
You want to be noted as nay, or?
that's fine.
Okay.
How many segments are there?
I think 5 on Rapid Creek.
Five?
And
There are
the
two
downstream
downstream
ones
from our
are-
number 3.
The downstream ones are downstream of the sewer plant out to the Cheyenne River, and they all have various kinds of impairments, so the plans that we're doing are not required.
Where's the division between 4 and 5?
Between 4 and 5.
Between segment 4 and segment 5, what's the divide?
Down around Farmingdale or something, it's
Yeah.
possible it's at the
Yeah.
USGS stream gauge there would
I
be,
think Farmingdale, yeah.
a logical cut point. So, to be clear, is this being requested as a separate proposal, an add-on proposal, as opposed to part of the
Yes.
Separate.
current proposal? I mean, you can take the current proposal and say, and the add-on would cost X amount. I mean, however we do it,
Well, based on this, it doesn't even have to go to the committee. This is
Well,
direct from the board.
This could just come right back to the board?
Yep.
Right. So this
And
doesn't
then
have to
we'll
be
decide
considered
what
by
to
the
do.
committee.
I think one other thing we want to do while it's convenient, I doubt if we can actually set a date when the committee could meet with HDR, but I would like to think that could happen sooner rather than later, and
I'm
maybe.
going to send that email tonight or tomorrow, and I'm gonna ask Larry to remind me if he does not see anything tomorrow, because Larry checks daily. And so I know I have been part of the problem of the committee because I do not reach out as quickly as I should sometimes, and sometimes I have a bunch of random kid stuff.
Do we
So-
have between us any scheduling things that we would preclude? This week is pretty early for everyone involved, something like next week.
I would say keep your calendars open, and I will get that email out to everybody.
Do it next week or I start to get scarce.
Okay. You got a day that you prefer?
I think the generalities, basically you and Bill are the working class. Ron and I tend to have more open schedules, but, I think my sense is that we would want to allow more than an hour, I think it probably is 2 hours likely enough, Corey. I mean,
I think so.
We want
Seems
to
like-
do it when Larry's in the office, Monday afternoon, Monday morning, Monday.
Would you like, Monday's usually a little bit tight for
Oh,
me,
okay.
just work-wise now. Do you have a time frame that works best, like general?
The only time that doesn't work for me is Friday late afternoon.
Okay. I'll try to, usually I like 2 o'clock, because my boss works in the Eastern time zone, and she's out of the office by then, so no one's looking for me to do anything. So I'll
well,
try to.
that's within normal business hours
Yeah.
for these people, and allows, if you end up needing 3 hours and, you don't want to be going till 6 o'clock or something like that, that cuts into happy hour, but.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we will do our best, absolute best to be flexible, just for informational purposes. Thursday afternoon is wide open for me, so, I don't know if that would work, but. I
Next
could-
week, Thursday?
Next week, Thursday on the 23rd, I don't know if that's too
Can
late.
you block out that whole section, and then we'll get a more formal time within the next 24 to 48 hours, do you?
That would be perfect. If that doesn't work,
No,
I will-
Thursday's usually a good day for me, so.
Yeah, that should be a good day for me.
Okay.
I'll just have to check with my boss. But it typically is good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know how that goes.
Everybody block 12 to 4, and then we'll get a more formal time in, just to save ourselves.
Was that 12 or was that 2? Did you say 2 is when you put up?
I'm just saying generally,
Oh,
because I don't
okay.
want him to get a magical meeting on Thursday preparing. I told him
Yeah.
to just block out his calendar the whole afternoon, and then
Do that.
we'll line up at a formal time when everybody can talk to their bosses.
And then, Mr. Chair, if one minor request, or if there are other comments that the committee or any of the board members have on reviewing this, questions they have, things that they might want to see different, if there's anything they want to provide in advance that, would help. If not, we can just go meet and review things in depth, and at that time, we'll have a draft scope or a contract. I'll bring the contract with and start to formulate this in a contractual form to present at that meeting. But if there's any comments that you guys have back, anything, this was not, the reason it said draft is because I did expect to get feedback or welcome the opportunity to meet with the 319 committee. So if you have any comments, questions, and nothing was like set in stone, absolute, we're open to the discussion.
I would like everybody to send it to Larry, and then Larry can forward it to you, therefore it's not getting lost.
What's HDR stand for?
Well, you're gonna put me on the spot.
I knew I would.
Henningsen, Durham, Richardson.
Durham.
Every engineering company in the world, I actually know of one exception, my former firm, they all use 3 letters. Every one of them is a 3-letter firm.
You guys started in Omaha, didn't you?
Yeah, we are still headquartered in Omaha. Well, you get me talking, I could talk all night, but Henningsen started the company in 1917, and then late 20s, Durham and Richardson became partners, and I think it was in the 50s they officially changed the name to HDR. And we've grown a lot. We're the largest ESOP, 100% employee stock ownership program company for an AE firm. And then we break up by business group, and we break up by geography. So being in the Dakotas, Wyoming area, we have about 240 employees in the 3-state area. And I say that it's, I feel like I work for a small company with a really good teaming partner. We do a great job of not letting geographic or office boundaries get in the way of getting work done, but we deliver locally. And that's our strength here in South Dakota, Wyoming. We have 7 offices in the 3 states, and it's been a good run. I like the company, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, item number 13, chair's comments. So things that I've been doing, I worked with Director McGregor on May 25th. We formulated the AG letter. We sent the letter. We got a response from the AG on June 1st that they had received our letter and that it would take them 2 to 4 weeks to respond. At day 44, which is we're about 6 weeks in, we still have not received a response on that. Oh, you're just waving by? Okay. Other things that I did, I met with the Black Hills Watershed Collaborative with...
Chairman?
We haven't finished that motion.
Would it be out of line to ask them, I guess my understanding was that if they were not gonna rule on it, they would let us know. Would it be out of line to inquire as to the status?
I'm gonna
just email them.
Go to the vice chair / former attorney.
I think it's a little premature yet to do that, but
Okay.
there will come a time when that may be appropriate, but
I would think that by our
right
August
now-
meeting, we'd like to know where it stands.
Do you think a touch base would actually move anything along, or just that they would just say that due to circumstances
We could,
it would be delayed?
I think you could, I forget the name of the guy we were dealing with, but
Yeah.
just a quick inquiry to him, is there any update?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I can do that.
Or is Marty too busy running for Congress to?
I think that's part of it.
Never know about that.
Yeah, I don't think it hurt to say, it came up at our meeting, wondering if we
Yeah.
will know by
The
our
board is
August
just
meeting.
interested in knowing where
Well,
we stand.
Yeah, I can do that.
That's a reasonable request.
I met with the Black Hills Watershed Collaborative, discussed about their funding request and the next steps with Director Young. We had a good meeting. I talked to our admin signing checks and just checking on progress of everything overall. And had a email from Barr about our Deerfield Pactola, kind of explaining what they have been doing since their last presentation. And so my priority is between now and August is to have that meeting with HDR about the 319 committee and reach out to the Attorney General's office just as a friendly check-in on that. That's all I have. Items from directors.
I have one. I just wanted to thank Director Mullally for the work you did on this funding evaluation criteria. That was you, wasn't it? They sent that out to us?
I don't remember. When was that?
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was. Anyway,
it could be.
I actually used this to score the
Oh, I
proposal.
know what you're talking about. Okay, I'll
Okay.
take that accolade. Okay.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I thought it was very well done. I'd like to see us move forward with this and put it in a rubric form that we can use on future proposals. And I can do that if you don't wish to, but I really
Well, if you
liked how
want
that
me to
worked.
keep working on it, let me know.
Yeah, no, it evaluated quantitative score that I think that is
Yeah,
very
we
useful
like
for a committee.
numbers to judge things.
Anyway, that's my only comment.
Just a comment, I got some email from the city the other day, and it had included in it some kind of a link to the 10 or 15-year master plan for Rapid City Parks and Recreation. And so they have included what they've now, maybe everybody knew it, but just me, I'm the lost one. They've got that area that we worked on Star Village included in their master plan now. It's named as Highland Park. And they have WIS and Associates Architects with a design concept for $900,000. And then they got, I think they got the LaCroix project in a park, but I forgot the name of it and I forgot the budget. But I think both of those items are actually included in this 10 or 15-year master plan now by the city. Maybe you know more about it.
I know that Highland Park is shown as a park. That name originated from, there was a master plan that WIS did for the Wagers. And they said, well, what are we gonna call it? Wager Park? And they said, no, call it Highland Park or something.
Well, it's retained that name apparently, and they must have done something to refresh whatever they did, because they've got some drawings and they got a concept number and they got some little things that they think they're gonna do there, you know, in terms of interpretation or trails or whatever. I thought that was interesting that they've embraced that now officially, I guess, as a named park in this long-term master plan.
I was aware of the plan and I tried to pull it up on the computer and it took like forever to load
Bingo.
whatever, and then I tried to take the next step and I says, screw this. You know, they can't give you something that works. So I saw enough to know that it's considered, it's part of their park system, which I knew already, that it's their responsibility.
I had to use my wife's computer in order to get it up. Mine's too slow.
Did I send that to you?
No. But I looked it up. I finally borrowed Joyce's computer and used it, and I went, oh, there it is.
Okay, 'cause I downloaded it and went through it and looked at it, and I thought I sent it to you. Or I might have, but maybe it didn't send.
Maybe I got it and it just didn't come up because my old
Okay.
computer is
Yeah.
coughing. I gotta buy a new one, but I'm kinda, don't wanna do that.
Next creek cleanup, we're gonna go out a little bit of, out of our usual second Saturdays. We're gonna go to the fifth Saturday in August because we're going to do it right after the Central States Fair along that section of creek. And we're going to invite the Central States Fair Board, county commissioners, city council, and folks like that. Usually that section gets a little rugged after the fair, including at one point people cleaning out horse trailers and pushing it right into the creek.
Did you?
Fair's been going, you'll find a body or two this year.
Well, we have found a body once, but
It's all
wasn't there.
fertilizer. Greenway Days update, were you part of that, and how did that go? And
Greenway Days was a great success. Fly Fishers did a creek cleanup and our One Fly event, and that was really fun. The collaborative is continuing to do work days, kind of educationally speaking, down in Custer State Park on Grace Coolidge Creek. They have 14 miles of Hop Creek and Gimlet Creek and Silver Creek, not only permitted, but underway right now with crews up there all summer long.
Well,
So a lot of cool stuff happening.
thanks for the update.
I don't know if I mentioned this last time, there's I call it Turtle Pond on Reservoir Road in Longview. It's in the valley, and Game Fish and Parks is working on making that into a little park, nice park. So I've been talking to them about that. They're gonna stock that pond. So just tracking that for something nice for the valley. Jeremy's the guy I've been talking to.
Dan?
It wasn't clear to me on the update regarding reclamation and bar. Have they completed the additional work that they were gonna do yet?
You can answer, it's been a minute.
The additional work that we approved, an invoice for.
We funded 35,000 or 25,000 instead of whatever
additional. They
amount.
completed that work. Yeah, that was modeling work that the Bureau basically said had to be done in order for that to fit into their
Right.
evaluation criteria. That's done. Now, the next step is, they've reached out to the city and the Bureau about one of the items that's been part of the discussion, which is an artificial hard bottom, basically, for drawdown on Pactola. So they would put that into their model then, versus having it possibly flux way down to, dead pool or whatever because of some kind of prolonged hydrologic event. So they're waiting for feedback from the Bureau and the city on that artificial hard bottom level. And then I think what they're gonna try and do is basically include that into, their final work product that will summarize everything, and then we get to figure out how we wanna move forward from there in terms of future interactions with the city and the Bureau on this deal. Basically, it'll be up to us then to figure out how to get the Bureau to embrace it as a reservoir operations study.
So just out of curiosity, this hard bottom, is that within the reservoir pool or downstream from the reservoir?
Maybe that's a bad terminology. The maximum drawdown that would be allowed under an operational plan. So right now, reservoir's full at 4580. Right now, that drawdown level, everybody's identified as being a really big problem, which it may or may not be, depending upon your perspective, is 4550, 30 feet down. So they're looking for feedback from the Bureau on whether or not we can continue to use that level that we've established as a problem for everybody for inclusion into the models that they've already got, versus the models operating where it can go down below 4550, like it does now on occasion when we have prolonged periods of drought.
Well, the only way to prevent that is you quit releasing, essentially, or you release no more than what's coming in. But I mean, anyhow, without going into the details, we don't.
It gets into a long-winded deal.
Right, I don't need the details. And anyhow, there will be a final report forthcoming.
By the end of the year.
They have done they still have to finish up. They're not
Right.
done.
Right.
But
So they're gonna wrap the remaining amount of work that they have to do, and with the remaining amount of budget, which is, I don't know, $15,000 or something, by the end of the year.
right, so where it goes in the future, per previous discussions, the release regime seems to have been turned into a moving target, and there's no sense agonizing over that. There's more discussions to come.
Right, lots more. But they'll be then in our court to decide how we want to carry it forward, or what more we want to do, or how we move it,
Right.
My guess is that, just speculating, we're gonna have to engage our folks at the congressional level to get the Bureau to get interested in looking at an operational evaluation, because they do not want to do anything more than they have to.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing else, I'm gonna move to items from admin.
Okay, I already went through the loss control report, because that fit in better with the insurance thing. And then second, just to let you be aware, and you can look at these later, I updated the existing proposal guidelines and included that. I didn't even think about it, but I didn't use track change, but what I did was in those numbered items that says that the grant proposal request should include the following sections. Those were not in any specific order relating to how the format of a grant should go. So very confusing to me as a proposal writer to look at that and go, well, does this go here? It doesn't make sense. So I combined a couple of them, but I rearranged them in the order of how a grant should be constructed. Basically taking from my notes that I went through with Lori and Hans when we met with them last month. And I think their proposal, at least formatted wise, was very well done. So I changed that, and then I put together a little 2-page document that I'm calling a formatting example, with just showing a structure with some few lines of text that just kind of supports, again, that bulleted list on in this area, these are the things that need to be in here, it needs to be focused on this and specify these things. And so, you know, there's nothing like this existing now at West Dakota. Not saying this has to be the one, you might not want to do it all, just kick it out. But I'll just leave that to you to look at, and I'll just make it a little discussion item again next month if you've had a chance to look at it. And if you do look at it and you say, well, this needs to have this or not this or whatever, you can send me those comments and I can maybe rework this if need be, if you want to include it next month. So I just thought it'd be clear for people proposing.
So right now, there's the old version on the website,
The old
is that
version,
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I see it, again, it's the same. I cut down a couple of the numbers on the bulleted list on the old items and then recombined some things and just rearranged it. And then that follows with this little example thing I put together.
So you've got this as a Word document?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
could
it's
you
it's a Word
send
document.
that in case we're inclined to?
Okay.
Mess with it.
Right, I mean, it sounds like you've not only put numbers on some of these, what had been headings, the order may have changed a little bit or whatever, but if we were inclined to comment, and I guess start with that.
Yep.
Anything
All right,
else?
that's it. Yep.
Okay. Items from the public? Hearing nothing? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Festivities
Faithful
begin.
public audience, right? That's a pretty